just been so exciting to be here with my 4 colleagues on this panel and hear 4 more wonderful examples of what we talk about as grassroots grant making. So grassroots grant making and grassroots grantmakers. Grassroots grantmakers is a network of funders. In the US and Canada, and I'm discovering that now we have colleagues in South Africa and Australia, and I'm sure that there's more out here in the audience that I haven't met yet. But we're a network of funders who are exploring how to fund from an ABCD perspective. And so we've grown up organically over the last 20 years, starting with a network of about 20 community foundations in the United States who were kind of exploring the idea of how to put community back in community foundations, or how to put how to get closer to the community with your funding. And then we're a peer learning network of funders who've connected with each other to explore, like, what do you do tomorrow? So you've gotten the idea of ABCD. You're interested in active citizenship. You're interested in civic engagement. You're interested in connecting with groups outside of the nonprofit service delivery arena. You've heard about Jim's matching grants program in the city of Orlando, and you want to do that yourself. And so what do you do tomorrow? And there's some things that you don't do. You don't just add associations to your list of groups that are eligible and expect that people are just going to find you and kind of fit into your funding processes that you already have in place. And so what is it that you do? And so our network of funders, we don't provide funding ourselves as a network. What we are is really a community of practice, a network of funders who connect to kind of share learnings of what we're learning and discovering in our own funding organizations about how to fund effectively from in an asset-based community development way. And so, I think that so much has been said that that you really heard all that I could say about what we're learning. But I just want to share just some insights from a few more of our members around the country of things that I think are really pretty remarkable, just to add to 4 remarkable stories. Before I do that, though, just in case you're wondering, what are some of the dilemmas? So why is it so hard to figure out what to do tomorrow as a funding organization? Some of the challenges. Well, one thing is, how do you're connecting with a different type of group that really doesn't know the funders dance. And so Tim talked about this dance of deception. And so if it's the 5 women on their block who get together who want to do something with their block, they may not even know how to find a grant-making organization. They certainly probably have never applied for a grant. And so if those are the people you want to connect with, how do you find them and connect with them? How do you tweak your own funding processes that say that you can only fund organizations that have 501c3 designations or some official government designations that says you're allowed to fund them? And if you want to fund different types of organizations, what processes and structures do you need to put in place so that you can do that? How do you think about, as a funding organization where you're dealing with money and you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, and sometimes, how do you put value on grants that range from $200 to $5,000? How do you think about the concept of small and not diminish your idea of what small can accomplish? How do you keep reminding yourself that small is a funder-centric notion, and that $1,000 to the 5 women on the block is not small at all? Indeed, it's quite large. How do you think about grant making that is really not transactional, that is relationship oriented? How, as a program officer managing multiple funding programs, do you have the time to get out of the office and engage in a different type of relationship building that makes this kind of funding work? How do you build programs when funders have, typically short attention spans? How do you work from a patient money perspective and know that the work of citizenship is never done, and that this is not a grant program that you're going to put in place and have everything accomplished in 3 years? And so how do you build that base of long-term support? How do you think about more than the grant, what Tim was saying? How do you think about what else you have to offer, what grantees have to offer each other, and set the stage for that sharing to happen? How do you learn how to do what Terry Hawley did at the East Tennessee Foundation and go to your board and convince them that what they need to do is spend money for a toilet? Terry can tell you that story on the side. So those are just some of the dilemmas. How do you measure results in a way, that is really appropriate for this type of work? So I think the good news for all of us is that there are hundreds of funders, and funders from community foundations, United Ways, local governments, family foundations, private foundations, community-based organizations that are raising their own money and granting it back out to their community. We think of all of those organizations as funders. So the central question that we're interested in as a network of a community of practice, people learning about funding from an ABCD orientation, is how do you work in this way? So some things that I think that are kind of particularly exciting, and from my perspective, I get to hear about and learn and connect with funders all over the place who are experimenting with this, and just starting right here in Canada. The Hamilton Community Foundation, I was thinking about David Derbyshire there talking about this is not place-based work, but it's face-based work. And so taking further than place, this is really about people in the place. And for this type of funding to work, it really has to be face-to-face relationships. There's Julie Black at the Calgary Foundation, where they're talking about renaming their neighborhood fund to the Neighbor Fund, and talking about nothing replaces the quality of neighborliness, and how they can think about funding to really promote neighborliness. And think about funding in those suburban communities in Calgary, those new communities where there's essentially a set of houses but not much connection or neighborliness going on. So they're not communities defined by a poverty of income, they're defined by a poverty of community. And so how do you use grants to really promote neighborliness there? I was thinking about friends at the Vancouver Foundation who realized that that one of the ways they can manage this face-based, high-intensity relationship type of grant making is to connect with community partners all over the city, all over the Vancouver area, neighborhood houses that have great connections in neighborhoods all over in Vancouver, and really decentralize the grant making and make grants to these neighborhood houses to make grants to people, to their neighbors in their community. Thinking about Cleveland, and Tom O'Brien, who's with us today, and they're putting together the Cleveland Foundation, which is the oldest community foundation in the United States and one of the largest. Their neighborhood connections, their grassroots grant making program there, it's neighbors, it's community residents making the decisions on $650,000 a year of small grants that go out to neighborhoods all over the city of Cleveland. And so giving the power of making the decisions to community residents.